Well, I'm back from another break, which is why I haven't uploaded for 5 whole days. And suspiciously, League is not burning that much. How did this actually happen? Well, for the most part, things just calmed down. Which finally also gave some spotlight to some of the good things that are happening. I mean, we got a rough outline of how Riot wants to update the Sun Uzal skin. Maybe we can talk about that one next time. The new season launch together with Arena and a whole new cinematic, which should be mostly canon, but also it hides a lot of Easter eggs. We're gonna talk about all of that now. And then the Zia Incident happened. Do I want to talk about that one? Anyway, if there is one thing the new season is doing well, it is the story beats. Regardless of how the Noxian season is received, and despite the lack of written short stories, it is cool to see that the story of Noxus is moving. It is not moving at the speed of light, but the progression is noticeable. And most importantly, it is cool to see that Riot is using all kinds of media for this kind of storytelling. Normally, Riot would just release a random trailer for a skin. Well, now that trailer became part of the canonical lore. Normally we would get just random art in the client. But now it is all part of the Noxian culture. This tying together of the entire theme is great. And yesterday, when the new act went live together with the game mode, which is also part of the canon lore, we also got a trailer that pays tribute to all the story that already happened. And so now, without further ado, we do have the civic duty of turning a 1 minute long trailer into a 10-minute long video. So, this cinematic begins with people heading into the Reckoning Arena. And here already, as if this was made by Fortiche, we can notice quite a few details. You may see that the entrance into the arena is split. You have the lowborn of Noxus entering the arena at the bottom, while at the top you have the nobility and the more important personnel. This already tells us how Noxus is structured. Because while they don't really give that much value to nobility, there are still important houses within Noxus that simply have higher value. And so here you can actually see the division. I can also point out that in the background there is a statue that really looks like a Demacian statue. I'm not sure if that is important. After which the shot goes directly into the pit. Of course, here we can see just a bunch of Reckoners fighting for glory, with one of the Reckoners riding a Basilisk. Now, in case you haven't played Legends of Runeterra or watched one of the MMO videos, Basilisks are pretty much the most common mount you can find around Noxus. Sometimes they are used for labor, but sometimes they are used for combat. And since this one is armored, it should be obvious what this one is doing. After which we get a view from above, where we can see all the flames. Now, these fires around the arena were first explored in Legends of Runeterra, after which they pretty much became iconic for the Reckoning Pits. This is why you can also see the fires in the arena game mode, but also you can see them in the new finisher. And here you can once again notice the separation in the crowd. If you have a look at all the people on top, you can see that they are in general more bulkier and armored. Because all of those people are important and they actually do have the money to have expensive armor. While all the people at the bottom look more normal and thinner. Because they likely just have casual clothing. And what's interesting to see is that at the bottom you can actually see the Reckoners with the Basilisk. Which makes me wonder, is this actually a 3D scene? Because everything down to the details is the same compared to the previous shot, including the hammer flying in the air. But then the shot zooms out and we can see just how massive the entire arena is compared to the other houses in the Immortal Bastion. And yes, this is all inside the Immortal Bastion, because the entire capital city is massive. But here you can see that there are slight differences from the Noxidai arena, which you may remember from Mel's comic. That's because that arena should be in the Medarda quarters of the Immortal Bastion. But since that arena is called the Noxidai arena, named after the tribe of Vision from the ancient Noxus, it would also make sense for the Immortal Bastion to have arenas named after the Noxalai following Guile, and Noxcry representing might, which is exactly what this arena might be. And you'll see why in a moment, and of course all of this is just a theory for now. Anyway, then we get a shot of Darius arriving in this arena. hence why it might be representing might. Now, we are still not sure just how canonical all of this is, but assuming that all of this is canon, it is cool to see that he has the new axe here. Obviously, he got it here because it is representing the skin you can get in the game. But from this setup, it really seems like the entire skin is Darius in his ceremonial garb, meaning that that is also a ceremonial axe. So in the end, yeah, it is cool to see that this is canon. After which we then get a side shot of Darius, and behind him we can see some of the red banners with the icon of the Triforix. More than that, this looks more like the modern Triforix and not the one we've seen in the cinematic, which is from the past. This made me think that maybe all of this is happening after the Triforix is already established, but later you will see that is likely not the case. And as of the time of this specific cinematic, Noxus was likely still ruled by Borem Darkwill. Anyway, the next shot reveals that all of this is happening in honor of Darius, who just came back from fighting the trolls in the north. So all of this is their celebration of the victory on the Freljordian fronts. And Darius even mentions that they are not here for the celebrations, or the spectacle, or the sport. Instead, they were there on the blood-soaked sand because of their legacy. After which, the shot goes down below the arena to show us the blood of the Reckoners that was soaked in. And then something cool happens. The Draven skin became fully canon too. You see, from this, it really seems like Draven was called into the arena to honor his brother with a spectacle. In other words, Draven was called into the arena to kill some people for fun. So even though that skin did not become the most popular Draven skin, because it's not too different from normal Draven or the Gladiator Draven, with the context of this being his ceremonial version, sure, that skin is cool. After which we get a close-up of Draven celebrating his victory, and as the lights flash around, he kinda starts resembling San Uzal, and I am not entirely sure if that was intended. But it could be because of what happens next, because after his victory is shown, it then goes to Alistar, rest in peace, possible chroma, where Darius talks about the Roar of Defiance. This is in reference to Alistar's story, because his story has always been about trying to defy the Noxians who put him into this arena. Because yes, Alistar is fighting in the Reckoning Pits against his own will. And you can see that he is crushing someone who kinda resembles one of the Trifarian Legion, which would suggest that he is really powerful. But again, at this time, the Triforix is not a thing, so I am pretty sure that is not a Trifarian armor. And lastly, they also show Xin Zhao, who in Noxus was known as Viscero. Now, in case you don't remember, Xin Zhao was essentially kidnapped from Ionia. He was brought into Noxus, where people noticed that he was really good with a spear, and so they offered him a better future in the Reckoning arenas. He didn't have anything to lose, so he accepted, he became a really good Reckoner, after which Borem Darkwill sent him to the front lines of a Demacian battlefront. Which means that since Borem Darkwill is the one who sends Viscero away, which also triggers the Demacians into rescuing him, it means that at this time, Borem Darkwill still has to be the leader of Noxus. Which also means that Swain has not seized the throne yet, which also means that the invasion of Ionia has not happened yet. All of this totally makes sense, and there is nothing wrong with it. Remember, this is happening years before Mel actually arrived back in Noxus, and years before Arcane. So I'm pretty sure there are no plot holes. I'm not saying it's impossible though, so if someone finds something, let me know. Anyway, Darius here talks about sacrifice, which is in reference to Xin Zhao sacrificing his past and present life in service of Demacia, which is the nation that saved him. After which, the shot goes to the beginning of the Noxian story, which is where we can see the ancient Reckoning Pits, which is pretty much just a few sticks lying around in a circle. The Reckoners also have no polished armor and no complex weapons. It is just simple barbarian axes. And when the scene spins around, indeed, we can see San Uzal on the throne in the background. He is watching the fights just like modern Noxians do in the present days. After which, Darius mentions that there is only one truth that matters: strength above all. Not only is this a reference to his quote in the game, but later Darius will also become a member of the Triforix and he will represent might. So his entire character is pretty much strength incarnate. But even more importantly than that, all of this is a reference to the cinematic with San Uzal. Because remember, San Uzal believed in the first truth, which was the religion that believed that there are gods in the glorious Hall of Bones, and that everyone should pillage in their name, which ended up not being real. So where San Uzal failed with his faith in the past, the modern Noxus might prevail. But instead of the first truth, they believe in the truth of strength. After this, the shot then gives us some flashbacks of Darius fighting Trundle in the Freljord. Of course, there he became victorious, and that is where the cinematic ends. Did we get into 10 minutes? I don't know, because I am editing this later. But I will have to say that, in general, I really like these. Despite the overall lore around League of Legends slowing down, the pace at which we are getting these small story beats is great. And according to the client, it seems like there will be 2 more things happening in this act. Based on what we've seen on PBE and what was already mentioned, there might be 1 more comic, but there might also be 1 more minigame. And since all the minigames we got so far were really good, I actually can't wait for the story that will happen in Act 2. Just remember that not everything will be great, go into this open-minded, and most importantly, remember that Alistar died for this.